Our next speaker is Ruslana Kruchek. Please welcome.
Thank you for being here. I know that might be a bit tough after yesterday, so I appreciate it. Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Lana. I'm co-founder, brand manager, and art director of the VP Production Audio Agency. We basically create sonic identities for games, apps, and brands. And I am responsible for our work pipelines, and I also make sure that our team crafts precisely something that our clients' audience will like, and that something will help our clients' products be meaningful to their audiences. And so today I'm going to talk about mobile game soundtracks as fun service. And I want to start with asking, how do you think how many people play mobile games with the sound on? Thank you, girls. I don't know actually how many. So, but I can see your answers there. And yeah, this is something that I hear like often, like nobody plays with sound on, like barely anybody plays with sound on. My clients tell me that it's on average like 30% of players. And the data, the only piece of data out there I could find on the internet from the website that it's still like it's no longer there, but still referenced it in multiple articles, tells that it's like 73 to 90%, which is really optimistic to me. But I guess everything like really depends on a type of game, on a genre of game, on the type of audience of this game. Because like if we're talking about hyper casual game you are playing with one finger while you're going to your work in a subway, yes, like probably you are not actually playing with the sound on. But if it's like a narrative driven game, or it's a meditative game, or it's, I don't know, any kind of emotionally involving game, probably you're gonna play with sound on. And it's actually something that I encounter quite often in my like personal conversations with people. The one guy told me like a month ago that when he plays a game at his work or in public transport, and he knows that he's gonna level up soon, he will pause the game, he will get back home, he will turn the sound on just to hear the sound, the jingle of leveling up, because it's super rewarding for him. So yeah, this is just one example, like personal, that I know. But even doesn't matter how many people actually play with sound on, because even a small percentage from 2+ billion of players, which is the number right now, it's still a lot of people. If it's either like, I don't know, 3% or 30%, it's still like millions of people, and you don't want to ruin your the perception of your game for them. So this is like two examples that I personally really like. And I see not just me, because like Two Dots is really like, I can say old game, but it's really simple game. It's about connecting dots of the similar color, but it has like an amazing soundtrack that was actually released on vinyl several times. And this is like a mobile game soundtrack. It's not something like fancy, not triple A game or something like this. And it's like it's released on vinyl. It's still, you can buy it out there. People bid on it on eBay. So yeah, it's doing pretty fine. And the other like most recent one, like it's Merge Mansion, and I happen to know the guy who is audio lead there. And since he joined this team, they started actually doing some music marketing, like using their soundtrack, their mobile soundtrack. And yeah, I just had a talk with this guy like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and he was like, I said him like, man, you're doing great. You released the soundtrack. You won several awards for it. You have all those, interactions with your audience about your music, and you're engaging your audience through your music. And he was like, thank you so much. I'm pushing this within my team. I actually telling them, guys, we need to do this. And this is precisely what my speech is about, actually. On a similar case that we had in our agency. So, what are the things about this case. So it's an animal simulator, like an RPG. The audience is like 12 age, like 12 to 16, and it's rather a social network than a game for them. So my question would be, do you expect much from this soundtrack? Because like our team would like we didn't, because we started working on this project like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, probably 6 years ago already. And it was a time that I wasn't like a full time part of our agency, and it was my partner and a team who started working on this project, and they created like a your generic mobile game soundtrack for like the game with animals and the forest. So it's really like not that no sophisticated of a soundtrack. And so when I joined the agency and it was the time for us to create a new batch of music with our client, I went and I was like, I wonder how well like the original soundtrack is doing. And so I went to YouTube, which was like the only like open thing for me, and I realized that those children put out like 1 hour 10 hour versions of a soundtrack of a track of one theme, which is one like 1 minute theme, and they put like this extended versions of that, which is not an extended version, it's just like the same 1 minute on a loop, and it gained like lots of listenings, like 125,000 of listenings. And it wasn't like something that developer had a control over or our team had a control over, because all those listenings were mostly generated like from user generated content. So no additional monetization, no nothing, you don't control the narrative, you don't control anything. And which is a great loss for a developer, for us, for everybody like within the team. And so we're like, okay, let's see what else is out there. And we realized that those children actually create music videos based on what's happening in a game, because they perceive this game again as a social network. There are like lovers, enemies, friends, like some drama in there, and they were like, love creating music videos about this. And as you can see, it's it's catchy. It's really not something that I would thought it would be interesting for everybody, but for anybody. But I'm not a part of the community, and for them it was all right. It was generated like two hundred thousand of like views and something like this. So yeah, and almost like one of those has almost like 1 million of views, which is like spectacular. And we were like, okay, let's give them what they want. And together with a developer, we created a story mode within which you could like players could create their own stories within like a frame provided by like developer, but also within like using the music that we created for those different types of stories. So they won't have to use some like third party music or something like this. They could use like the music that is inside the game to reinforce this connection with the game through the like user generated content. And we were like, okay, let's try, maybe it's a time to release this music anywhere, like somewhere. And like, okay, we did the dumbest thing. We released it on Bandcamp and SoundCloud. I don't know what we were thinking back then. Uh, because like I would tell you that Bandcamp and SoundCloud aren't really the platforms that children aged 12 to 16 use. So we generated like roughly 15,000 of listenings, but we were like, okay, there is potential there. Because we gathered like many reviews from the players, like, okay, this is an amazing soundtrack, I love this music, it's better than the original piece, like original soundtrack, which is like yeah, it is better because it's been like 5 years since we composed that one, and also like everything has like changed in our work pipeline. So it's great to see that you think it's better, because I would be sad if it wasn't better. And like you see this, there is one specific comment that like, I love your music, I want to play it at my house, please. So like, okay, so there is potential there to make it a part of their like everyday life, the soundtrack to make it a part of their everyday life. I'm like, okay, what if we just keep swimming? Pun intended, because like it's an ocean world we're gonna talk about, which is like a new map to this game. So the original map is the forest one, but they decided to add like ocean world to cover like a new part of the audience that is really about, you know, like underwater world, all this aesthetic and vibe and stuff. And we're like, okay, let's really invest in this soundtrack. And this is something we discussed with developer for quite some time, but we managed to come into an agreement that we're gonna invest more time and resources into this one because it's a big like new addition to a game, and it makes perfect sense to elevate the soundtrack like further. So the question was how it should sound, and this is when there are like certain things to take into account when working in any like at any mobile soundtrack out there. You like game visuals, like obviously, but in our case, it also was like an audio legacy. Even though like the original soundtrack wasn't something like that we would love to stick to, still we couldn't like just abandon it because like audience loves it. So we couldn't be like just, oh, we don't like that, we're gonna make something else. No, like audio legacy is something, well, was something to take into account. And also like we had to take into account like target audiences preferences, but also emotions. They should experience the emotions and associations that developer want to create within their head. And yeah, of course we had to look like at some like market like competitors and also niche cliches, but because like for every like genre there are cliches for their for this soundtrack. So yeah, that was something that we like really wanted to look for. And yeah, of course, best practices of the genre was something that we wanted to explore. And yeah, let the analysis start. I started with going through all the similar games, like the closest competitors out there. So it's the same like animal simulator type of games, but just like like underwater one, sea themed and stuff like this. And like the thing is that they sound bad. I was thinking about like putting some of this for you today, but I was like, I'm gonna spare you because it's a torture to listen to that. But just believe me. Like, and there were like so many comments from players like, why does it sound so bad? It scares me. I like, and the insight that I gained from this part of the research is that children are scared of mermaid songs for some reason. Like, you know, they're like probably because they're so haunting in a way that they don't consider them beautiful, they consider them creepy. So yeah, it was the first note to myself. I was like, okay, no mermaid songs whatsoever. um like, and the top problems that I discovered through this part of research is what like the developers really like attention to the audio in their games. Like for the closest competitors, they were like, yeah, we're gonna just put something in there, they gonna buy it now. They like, those children weren't stupid, you know. They were like, yeah, I don't believe the sound of dolphin, it's not, it doesn't sound like dolphin. And yeah, then they failed to create like the realistic sound, because to create a realistic underwater sound, just technically wise, it's really hard and you should invest like lots of time and resources into it. So it's better to go for something metaphorical, but those people were like, no, we're gonna stick to the realistic sound, and they failed. Lack of music consistency as well. I like tie this to the idea that it's not lack of just music consistency, it's the lack of like audio concept whatsoever. But and poor implementation, this was like the like one of the biggest issues there. And then I also find out that there are some like close competitors that sound good and people actually notice this. Like, I love this game, I love this music, it's very soothing. Okay, so, and the next like conclusion that I made, that if a game has at least a basic audio concept, because this game, like it's a hello whale or something like this, I cannot tell that there is something like unique and like breakthrough in terms of like audio, but sounds all right. It has a basic audio concept. It's built on like around metaphoric sound, not the realistic one, and it is consistent throughout like gameplay. It is enough to receive appreciation from the audience because all the closest competitors just sorry, but they just suck. And yeah, and then we were like, okay, it's like everything is clear with the closest ones. Let's look at best practices of underwater genre game. And we looked precisely at these projects. And as you can see, like many of them are actually like those are indie games. And yeah, like Abzu is the game that Austin Winter recreated soundtrack for. So it's like a kind of like, high level one. But there are like this Coral thing and Son of the Deep. Those are like, indie titles. So nothing too fancy. And I researched this and I came to a conclusion that there are some niche cliches there. For example, it's the harp, woodwinds, strings, pets, high pitched woman voice, again, mermaid songs. Um, yeah, and that it's usually either like neoclassical orchestral music or this soothing electronic ambient one. And the other problem that I encountered is that a small percentage of developers have officially released their soundtrack, which is like a huge missed opportunity, as we talked previously, because they don't control their brand asset. Basically, they don't control this communication with audience about music. Also, they lose money because of it, and also like usually there are so many reviews that I encountered throughout my research that like I want to listen to this music. I want to do this officially, like legally. How can I do this? Please release the soundtrack. And they never did. So it's missed opportunity like to interact with the community as well. And the third pillar of our research was like, what about audience? So what do they want? What are its like insights? I found out that like throughout those like underwater games, people tend to listen to their soundtracks like to fight anxiety, insomnia, or concentrate on something. And in the case of children, it was to concentrate on studying actually. And also, like I found out that audience likes music that gives not only ambience but also some emotions. However, you don't want to go too hard with emotions. They had to be precisely calibrated because extra emotional music can be considered like haunting or depressing because the underwater like themed soundtracks they aren't cheerful and fun. They have to be like a bit moody because of this whole like underwater atmosphere. But if you go really moody with that, children are like, oh no, I want to cry to this. And this is not something that we want to like do with our game. And the other insight that I encountered that like people players don't like when there are like some sound effects incorporated in music because it really confuses them. Because in this type of games, sound effects are like their main goal is to give feedback on users' actions. And if there is like other sound effects incorporated into the soundtrack, it confuses players because they think that they did some action, but they actually never did, and it confuses them. So yeah, it was the time for us to move to audio concept. And so here is the point when everything just comes together. Um, Everything that we researched, every piece of data that we found, we realized, okay, again, our soundtrack has to respect the music legacy, but which was like created for the forest map, which is like harp, woodwinds, female voice, ethnic percussion, and strings. At the same time, we have to differ from competitors, which like who are using harp, woodwinds, female voice, and strings. So like, okay, we're like yeah, it's not the easiest task, but we're gonna roll with it. And also we realized that we have to provide our players with a relaxing experience while keeping them stimulated and amused, because it's not the meditative game. It's like pretty like active game for players. So we were like, okay, we don't go with mermaid songs. We abandoned that idea. We don't go with either cinematic or classical style orchestral music, because it's like the most common thing all the competitors go, or best practices. So this we will not do. Um, we were like, okay, so what do we do in this case if we don't have to use almost all of the instruments from our audio legacy, and we don't use like those things? What do we do? And this was the time for audio mood boards. This is actually the practice that helps us to establish the shared vision together with developer, like early on in the project, like early on. And this is actually like just like visual mood boards. Audio mood boards is just like, you know, a number of different like music excerpts from various tracks. It could be soundtracks, game soundtracks, film soundtracks, like even just your ordinary piece of music. So this was our like, it's not the old things that we've used for our mood board, but this like the major ones. So you have like another like two mobile games here. Abzu, of course, because it's beautiful. Blue Planet by like soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, and also the French post-rock shoegaze like gaze band Alceste. But this one is like kind of not that dark of an album, as you can tell by its cover. So we were like, okay, we're gonna use some excerpts from this like music to really establish a shared vision with our client. And so like it was great, because for each excerpt we had like some feedback, which helped us to calibrate what we want to do in this soundtrack. As you can see, there are some examples like this is too slow, this is too fast. This maybe we can use something in a combat theme. And here are okay. There are like a feeling of adventure, like exploration, something like this. And this was one of the associations we were going for with our soundtrack. We wanted our players to feel this like feeling of adventure, that there is something to explore, you know, out there. And this is roughly like our main ideas for audio concept. Of course, I'm not going to share like a whole document with you, but to like as a tags, was our audio concept. So okay, we are going for smooth electronic ambient, because yes, it is used in best practices, but not that it's not that common as opposed to like orchestral music. We're gonna make it slightly emotional, not too emotional, not to depress those children. We're gonna use some lively melodies, and we're gonna put them in a form of dialogues. So when, like, you know, there are some melodies that one of the melodies kind of asking something and the other kind of replies to it. And this will enhance this idea of the game being actually like a social network rather than just a game. We decided to go with clean guitars with reverb. That's why there was like this band Alcest in our audio mood board, because clean guitars with reverb, first of all, reverb gives you this idea of this big space, which ocean basically is. And clean guitars have this ethereal sound to them without using like, you know, like woman's high pitched voice, because like this was our like, this is forbidden. We don't do that. We used our like harmonies legacy. We kept woodwinds and harp, but we added like big drum for also this idea of, you know, of this scale of this like all the space of the ocean. And also we used this heavily for a combat theme. And we used hand drum, because hand drum has this kind of watery sound to it. So, and it was somehow in best practices, it wasn't that like it, I never encountered it there. And we're like, okay, this is something unique that we can add here and create some like differentiation from other games. So yeah, electronic paths, a glockenspiel for some, you know, like magical touch to it. So yeah, and we're like, okay, we have a soundtrack, let's release it everywhere this time, not just on Bandcamp and SoundCloud. And we released it, like we made like a small like page for it. We released it like everywhere. If you wanna, you can scan and just listen to it later. And so yeah, and we never really communicated it because like developer doesn't do like that extensive of a marketing. But still, we were like, can you please share it with your audience so they know that it's actually out there. So they did a few posts about it for their community. And yeah, and over a year we generated like 50,000 of listenings purely organical. It was either from those two posts from developer or from children just looking for this music and finding it. And less than 16% of those listenings were generated from user generated content, which meant that we had control over this like soundtrack release. We had control over additional monetization, and it helped us like to make donations to charity. It was a joint decision with developer because like both developer and our agency are from Ukraine. So we were like, okay, we're gonna support our nation in this tough time. And so yeah, it was a great idea, and for them and for us. And we got so many great reviews about this soundtrack. The best one that I really was when the second I saw this piece of feedback, I was like, yes, this was exactly what we aimed for. I would always sit quietly in my room and let Wildcraft play its music. It's so peaceful and relaxing. So basically, the person tells us that um, they open the game and they just let it there and just sit in the room or do something, do homework, like anything, while the game is there. And it's like, okay, you are spending so much screen time in that game, not actually even being in the game. And the other one is like, this music make me wanna play Wildcraft every day, which is also great. And I don't know if I put it in here, but other thing that I saw of a person saying like, I used to play Wildcraft really like often, but then I abandoned it. But then I saw that there is a new soundtrack. I checked it in, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna download it again because I wanna play the new one with this soundtrack. And this is exactly what we aimed for, and this is exactly why this soundtrack is is a part of fan service, because we looked for everything that people wanted, well, all everything that players wanted from this music to be, and we kind of let it guide our process and guide our collaboration with this client. And probably there will be something, because I encounter this reviews quite often, like when you're going to release like the original soundtrack, will you release this soundtrack? And the answer is no, because I don't like how it sounds, and I don't want to see it like across streaming platforms in this form it is like existing now. But there is always opportunity for doing like a reimagined version of it or an updated version to it. So to be continued. I don't think this collaboration is over yet. So just to sum up, uh, like you want to put some, at least some effort, like the smallest one, to your mobile game soundtrack, because there always will be people who want to listen to it. Um, and you don't want to ruin your first, like their perception of the game, their first impression of your game, because the fact is that people tend to have sound on, well, or when they are launching the mobile game for the first time. And this is the point when you can actually grab their attention and grab like the form the impression that you want to form. And as I show you from like in this speech, even like the slightest effort will make you sound good and will make your game look good. And yeah, and you have to put an extra effort if you know that your game's genre and use cases and audience preferences indicate that it will be listened to. So it's either the data that you have, that you like there are so many players of your game playing with sound on, because sometimes soundtrack is composed after the game is released. It's also a common practice for us. But also, like, if you know from a competitor's research that like the games similar to yours are usually played with sound on, you cannot just skip this step. This next like big thing is that you have to communicate with your audience and see what they want and look for the insights. Like, it's out there, it's like just grab it and use it. And you have to follow the wishes if you can, though, because you also have to keep balance between audience's wishes but also your project goals and your like own interest. For example, as we are doing right now with this like original soundtrack, because yes, the audience wants it to be out there. We don't want it to do this because of our own reasoning. So we're gonna think, okay, how we can compromise on this one. And yeah, the last one, make your soundtrack accessible to listen to like everywhere, because you like sometimes if you think, okay, it's gonna be enough to release it here like on YouTube or something, you're always missing on like so many other opportunities. So yeah, that would be it. And if you have questions, I'm here to answer them. And I don't know why music is not playing.
Okay, thanks for all. I think I have only one question. I want to ask you. You show it to us. This comment. Do you answer to all this comment?
My partner, sometimes he does. Whenever it's because there are so many, so many different videos on YouTube with this, like, user generated videos. Under those ones, those that are official, let's put it this way, he answers the questions. Or answer the comments, like thanking people, like appreciating their interest and engagement. And there was one, it was a really fun case. There is uh 8D drum and bass remix of the original theme for whatever reason, and it has also quite a lot of listenings. And so my partner went there, and he was like, he commented on this video like, great work, like, I don't remember what the artist name was. He was like, great work, like, keep it going. And the person goes, I'm sorry, who are you? And he goes, I'm the composer of this game. And this person goes, oh my god, oh, it's such an honor to hear from you. I'm so delighted that you like liked my work and stuff. And this is also something you want to do with your audience. You want to engage with them, you want to give them validation of what they're doing. It's actually meaningful to your team. And this is such an incredible case, because they are like so packed with emotions. They gonna remember this, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Let's listen this beautiful track, and we'll see you after lunch.
Thank you.